Salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic and one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, that's White Cow right there.
That's great. I love it. Okay, roll call, please.
Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to our legal counsel, Craig Parton, for just a moment.
I understand Director Bryden is appearing remote, is on the conference line. Is that correct?
He was going to try to join a remote.
Okay. Is Director Bryden on the line?
I do not see him online yet.
Go ahead and call him.
Okay. Was here. Chair Paris,
Here.
Vice Chair McLaren,
Here.
Director Bryden, Director Calandri,
Here.
Director Urosic,
Here.
Alternate Knudsen,
Here.
Alternate Martin,
Here.
Alternate Becca,
Here.
Alternate Hogan, and Alternate Kabar.
Here.
All right. And in the room, we have Jim Beck, myself, Josh Montoya. Do we have Arden Wells online?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Do we have Maureen Riley?
Yep, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
In the room, we have Craig Parton. Do we have Cameron Goodman online?
Yes, here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. And now we're on item 3, adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Motion made by Kathy. Is there a second? Second by Brandon. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to adopt the agenda, say aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion's carried unanimously. Public comments for non-agenda items. Public comments for non-agenda items. Mrs. Kyle?
Should closed session be considered non-agenda?
Mr. Parton?
It's an agenda item. There's going to be a report after.
So would the public have the ability to comment on that at that time?
If they want to comment on a closed session matter, they can comment now.
Now?
Would be
Okay.
appropriate time.
Mrs. Kyle, come on up.
Julie Kyle. I just had a question in regards to the closed session items regarding Todd Engineering as to should that be a conversation that we're having in the open? And why is that a closed session item to discuss Todd Groundwater's future contract?
Thank you. I'll have.
Yeah, it's a work performance evaluation, just like we did for Hallmark. So we will eventually have a report for you, Ms. Kyle, but
Okay.
This is a matter covered by the statute.
We operate under the Brown Act,
Correct.
correct? So any employee then, because we operate under that, is considered a public employee even though we're not a public entity?
They are independent contractors, but considered an employee for purposes of evaluation.
Okay, thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Any public comments online? You can raise your hand or begin speaking right now. Angel, anything? Okay, we'll move on to item 5, consent agenda, financial report and payment of bills, and minutes of the September 27th, 2023 meeting. Joshua?
Yeah, there was a couple questions by the admin committee, so I'll address them now. One of the questions was, where are we with the supplemental assessment and gathering those funds? We have received 94% of those funds, and for context, we billed $332,468, and today we have received $310,993. There was a second question regarding Ron Bannock and why it is showing on the accounts receivables for 91 days and over a negative balance of $9,505.69. And the reason for that being is he overpaid on a variable assessment in 2021 and has requested to leave the amount in as a credit on his accounts. And
Okay.
those were the only questions asked during the admin committee.
Administrative committee, you're good?
That's great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joshua, for that report. Any other questions regarding consent agenda? There's no questions. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Derek, I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Derek. Is there a second? Second by Brandon. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. We're on 6, advisory committee report. Dennis, come on up.
Good morning, Dennis Lamoureux with the advisory committee. And hopefully the memo is clear and speaks for itself. Maybe one thing to point out is, aside from being concerned and working through this administration contract, I think the committee is starting to want to look at the legal services and how to maybe get a better handle on that cost also. It's a big cost to the pumpers.
Understood.
Any other questions?
Dennis, was there any ideas from the advisory committee on how to achieve that?
Not specific ones at this point, but for instance, the question was raised about the detail of billing. If there's more than the summary sheet that's shown in the packets, and then levels of authorization for work to be done is an idea.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Any other questions, Dennis?
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Dennis. And that brings us to the administrative committee report.
This or the body of a
Probably will bring out more when we get into the separate agenda items, but, just as to add to Dennis's comment and our financial performance, if you go back to the financials, I think it was almost for the month of September, our billings were almost $90,000. So, we asked staff about, do they feel comfortable that we're still on our target for the budget? They did. It was just a heavy month. But, if you look at that, 30 was in Todd Groundwater, 15 in Hallmark, and 40 in legal. So, make the board aware of that.
Thank you, Derek. Any comments? Okay, thank you. Brings us to the public hearing to consider amendment to rules and regulation for unanimous voting requirement. And that's going to be incorporated as an amendment. Great.
Yes, this is a memo that has gone through a few iterations, 3 of them to be exact. And I think there is interest in ending the pain one way or the other and taking a vote after getting public comment. The fundamental principle of the judgment is unanimity, that this board would act in a unanimous fashion. That has been possible to achieve in essentially every case until we had this bump in the road earlier this year. Their council was directed to come up with some language to amend the rules and regulations to see if we can deal with a situation where someone abstains or recuses themselves. We developed that language and actually tightened it down in the last iteration so that there has to be unanimous consent of the remaining board members if somebody abstains or recuses themselves. And the board member has to disclose what it is that has created the abstention or the recusal position. This has been hotly debated. I think we open it up for public comment. We've got people that have reminded us that this is a fundamental principle of the judgment and that we should be very careful, in fact, oppose us doing anything with respect to amending the rules and regulations on this. So the memo is on page 28 and 29.
And Craig, can I interrupt you for a
Yeah.
minute? I did not open the public meeting, and I think your comments up till this point were appropriate.
Sorry.
But before we read the amendment, let me get a motion to open up the public hearing.
Move to open the public hearing.
Motion by Kathy, second by Brandon. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to open the public hearing at 10:13 a.m., say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Public hearing is now open, and now would you present the proposed amendment to rules and
Yes.
regulations for unanimous voting requirements?
This is an amendment that is on page 29 of your board packet. The memo supporting the adoption of that rule and regulation starts on page 28 of the agenda packet for today. This is an effort to have our cake and eat it too. In other words, have a unanimous vote and yet not have all 5 members voting. There has been a lot of discussion about whether we have the ability to do this or not. We think we do. It's another question as to whether it's appropriate to do it in this case and under these circumstances. So this is the opportunity to hear from the public. The amending language, as I mentioned, is there on page 29 of the board packet. And this is the third time this memo has been edited and brought back to the board for consideration. So hope we can get to a potential resolution of this one way or the other.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah.
And is there comments from the public at this time regarding this item? Please come forward, state your name.
Good morning, folks. As you know, I'm Keith Lemieux. I represent some of the public entities. I don't think you're surprised to hear from me this morning. I just want to make it clear that once again, at our steering committee meeting, the public entity group talked about this item, and I think I can speak for the full group when I said that no member of the group thought this was a good idea. We were unanimous in our opposition to the unanimous lifting. I've talked about it before. This is a bedrock of the judgment. Part of the reason why the board is constituted the way it is with the seats it has is because we agreed to unanimous voting. If we didn't reach an agreement on unanimous voting, I think the negotiation might have gone very differently about how the board was composed. I understand that this is meant to address a situation where members abstain from voting, and I am sympathetic to people who want to maintain the appearance of a lack of conflict when they vote. However, I'm not entirely convinced that there is, in the situation of the Watermaster, really an appropriate time to abstain from voting. Every member of the board represents a party that was a party to the judgment. Therefore, every member of the board represents a party that's interested in the outcome of every decision made by the board. And in fact, that's what qualifies you to be on the board. So it's not a normal situation like a normal public entity board where you've got, the requirements of the Political Reform Act or Government Code 1090 or any of that. So I'm not convinced, and in particular, given that, again, I understand that people don't want to appear to be conflicted when they vote, and I'm sympathetic. However, this idea of recusing yourself and then creating a 4-member quorum as a result, I think also has the possibility to be used for gamesmanship. Not that I think anybody sitting up there would do that, but just understand that that's it could open the door to some creative games perhaps that could get played. I mean, essentially an abstention from voting is a no vote, and under the judgment, that means the motion wouldn't pass. And so that's where I think it should stay.
I'm sorry, Keith, did you misspeak? I think you said, and then the motion would pass.
Wouldn't pass.
Would not pass, yeah.
Right. Sorry if I misspoke. Right. It's an abstention, abstention is essentially a no vote. You need an affirmative, unanimous vote to make something pass. Therefore, an abstention would cause a motion to not pass.
Is it your position that, and I'll ask Craig the same question, I'll just preview it with you. Is it your position that there would never be a situation where a member up here would have a conflict to vote on something before the Watermaster Board?
I don't think there would be. I do note that the judgment says that when you're up there, you're representing a constituent group, not simply your own personal interests. So that is, but it doesn't say that you can't be mindful of your own personal interest, I suppose. So, that's as close as it gets in the judgment to conflict of interest that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Keith, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Brandon.
I want to comment on this and get your opinion on it. I believe my father was the first one to exercise the abstention on a vote. And I was there from the start when we had all of these discussions. I was there with the lack of trust that was shown between everybody involved in this thing. We really came a long ways to build trust within this group.
We have.
And I understand that what the judgment says, and there should not be a reason for an abstention. But I will say this, in an effort to continue to keep the trust foundational to our main operation, I will say that I feel it's crucial to maintain the operation of this Watermaster through the integrity that we're trying to hold amongst us as individuals. For example, if I have a vote that comes up that may benefit my family in one way or another financially, even though I don't have to recuse myself and I'm operating within the four corners of the judgment, I can't in good conscience say it's a good idea for me to vote on that because of the opportunity that it presents to break the trust down between the stakeholders of the board. So I do want that opinion expressed to you on why there has been some abstentions from the seat that I hold, which was previously my father's. But that is also why we have the alternates.
If you're looking for my comment on that, I certainly respect your integrity in this matter, but understand that, broadly speaking, I mean, you're there representing the small pumpers. Is that right?
The landowner group,
right?
Yes.
And so all of them, including you, are financially interested in almost every decision that we make here, or that you make here. And so I know that some sort of more particularly affect you than others, perhaps. But broadly speaking, if you're looking at it from a pure conflict of interest standpoint, this all affects the bottom line of not only your business, but all of your constituency's business at pretty much every time you vote.
Oh, I understand that. I just think I know this community. I'm 3 generations deep in this community. I know how it works. I know how the perception goes. And I think it would be a disservice in certain cases where it's immediate next of kin to cast a vote in some of those situations that have arose.
Perhaps in that case, it would be appropriate to step down and let the alternate vote in your stead.
Which I have done.
Yeah.
In those situations.
Any other questions regarding?
I do.
Speaker? And I'm going to ask Craig to comment on everything Keith has said after we've asked questions of Keith.
Great. So Keith, it's interesting, and I appreciate your experience with the whole process that went through the adjudication. I've gotten mixed from our landowners and our landowner lawyers of mixed opinions on this, very similar to you, and others that said, hey, this was never contemplated during the negotiations that there would be a recusal or there would be so it opens it up to that conversation. So I'm curious, if you think abstention or recusal was discussed or, on that. And so
I think, well, I don't.
It's a new subject matter.
I don't recall the topic of people recusing themselves having come up. And I think if it had, we probably would have had language in there about it one way or the other.
So I think it's appropriate to at least address it and put it to bed, as our council has said, one way or the other, with some type of language to deal with it going forward.
Yeah, and I don't take my comments. I think, I believe this to be a good faith conversation. So I don't, I'm not trying to express a view that we're angry this is coming up, but we do have a strong view on it.
Appreciate that.
And that's the purpose is what I brought up was just flushing it all out to make sure it's a good, complete, faith, coherent discussion. And I will tell you, there's a lot of reservation, in my opinion, to opening the judgment up to change it from the 5-0 vote. I am not at peace with it as of this moment.
Thought about not having that. It's kind of ironic. It's in those trivial decisions like approving the minutes from the prior meeting. The problem is that since that's a trivial decision, there's no reason to change the requirement because it's almost always 5-1 anyway, 5-0 anyway. So that's the catch-22.
Okay, thank you, Keith.
And Craig, Keith, anything else?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments.
Yeah,
and Keith, will you comment on those comments?
Yes, just to remind the board, we looked at the issue of conflict of interest in the last couple of years, created a memo on it. We've talked about it. The memo is clear that arguably everybody has a conflict on almost every question that's being answered. But there is no legal duty to recuse or abstain from it because of that. And I think Director Calandri's response is completely appropriate. But I've told him before, and I'll tell everyone who does the same thing, you're not legally required to recuse yourself in those situations. And the memo deals with that. And I would just say in terms of the vote, regardless of how the vote goes, there may need to be some clarity on what is appropriate grounds for recusal versus what's the difference between recusal and abstention, and what's the legal effect of both.
And Craig, I did have one question on the memo, and it was actually brought up to me. It was brought to my attention pretty late last night. Was the legal authority that we have to force a director to state a reason on a no vote? Are you allowed to do that? I've never seen that on a board before.
It wasn't a no vote. It was on recusing.
I'm sorry, on a recusal.
Or abstention.
Yeah, I misspoke.
And I think there's general authority, Director Calandri, in the judgment to be forthcoming on that. This is an internal matter. I think people want to know if there's something as serious as a recusal or abstention, what the nature of it is. It doesn't have to be great detail. My interpretation of that clause is that there has to be enough information to inform the public of what the basis is for them abstaining or recusing.
Okay.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No.
Any other comments from the public? Hearing none, it is now 10:25. Is there a motion to close?
Mr. President.
Oh, wait.
This is John Ukestead, Antelope Valley Mutual Group.
Hi, John.
How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
I'm in support of the comments that Mr. Lemieux made. Okay, and I believe that my mutual group feels the same way.
Very good.
So thank you.
Thank you, John. Any other public comments? Going once, going twice, gone. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion made by Kathy, second by Brandon. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, no discussion. All in favor of the motion to close the public hearing at 10:26, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. Motion's carried unanimously. We're now on number 9. Consideration possible action to amendment to rules and regulation for unanimous voting requirements, resolution R2373. Is there a motion to approve resolution number R2373, amendment to rules and regulations for unanimous voting requirements?
Can I make an amendment to the
So the subject is the resolution.
Yes.
I guess somebody could make a motion to approve the resolution and then amend it. can they make a motion at this time that would amend the resolution?
I think they can.
Okay. That's close enough for me. What motion would you like to make, Derek?
Thank you. Let me pull it up here. So, I think as you've heard from a number of landowners and the constituents that I represent, there's mixed emotions on this. I think the one clear and clarifying item that came out of it from my side was that basically in that recommendation on page 29 is and so it's not a hill I'm going to die on, I guess, this is what I'm saying. But I would like to present to the board that we should bring into that such, board members shall state on the record the precise nature of a basis for their abstention or recusal. I think that brings clarity. It brings openness to to both the board and to all the constituents, and it makes us understand of why that is. Because if it isn't, and then it pushes forward, it could end up in court where there is economic impact to the landowners. And I think it's very duly noted that we need to be transparent on that from all board members.
So the motion would be from Derek. Let me try to summarize, or actually try to make it. The motion would be that we amend our rules and regulations that if a board member is to abstain or recuse themselves from a vote, that they would provide the reason in public for that recusal or abstention.
Yeah. I basically would take the verbiage that council has offered that says board members shall state on the record the precise nature of the basis for their abstention or recusal.
So you're wanting that sentence, not necessarily the rest of it.
That is correct.
So it would not be, the motion's not to approve the resolution. The motion would be to amend the rules and regulations to provide that the board member who's abstaining or recusing would state the reason for that as written within this. Craig, is that a permissible motion?
I'm concerned that it seems to me the cleaner way to do it is to vote on the resolution. It would be a no vote on the resolution from Director Urasek. And then we can discuss amending the rules and regulations with that language. But I'm concerned that we're changing the entire nature of the resolution. We need to vote on what is there and then move to step 2. If you want to direct us to amend the rules and regulations with more restricted language just on that issue, I'll do that and bring that back to the board for consideration.
So, and I think I would share your concern only that the public hearing was looking at the full resolution and not that issue. But we have a motion before us. Is there a second to that motion?
Well, I'd like clarity on the motion because I am fine with supporting the disclosure aspect of it, of disclosing your purposes for recusal, but I cannot support the 5-0 change.
Right. And that wasn't Derek's motion. So, Craig, would you like to give us guidance on this? Should we even entertain that motion or second at this time? Or what is the guidance to the board at this time?
My guidance on this is, my understanding is that the amendment contained on page 29 is not acceptable. And that the limited language about stating on the record the precise nature of the basis for their abstention or recusal, that phrase be integrated into the rules and regulations. Do I understand that right?
That is my motion, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And I second it.
I am concerned that I need to integrate that to make it a clear proposal that we can discuss in a separate session. I think first we need to vote on this resolution and then have the discussion whether you want to direct me to integrate that phraseology in the rules and regs and have public comment on that and adopt it as an amendment to the rules and regs.
Of course. So there's a motion made and seconded. We've heard the direction by our council. Is there comments regarding that motion, Keith?
Keith Lemieux. Yeah, I do have a comment. I was not aware that this would be considered as a discrete provision, and so as a result, our steering committee hasn't had the chance to talk about this as a separate item. I would ask that if you're inclined to go there, that you, as your council say, treat that as a separate matter and bring it back, because we would need to talk about it. We may be fine with it, but we need to talk about it before we can make any comments on it.
Thank you, Keith. Any other public comments? So there is a motion, there is a second, and let's have board discussion on this right now. Any discussion?
Not for me, no.
Brandon?
I appreciate what Keith had to say on that.
Kathy?
I appreciate that.
Sammy?
I'm good with what's been said, and
Chair Parrott, if I could, in the admin committee, one of the items that was discussed by Director Bryden was whether this is voted on to pass or not pass today. His comment was that we need to be considerate of the budget and directing legal to continue this effort if it did not get passed today, and be mindful that this is additional cost. And his primary concern is that we need to be considerate that if we're trying to lower the legal costs, we keep directing them to do more and more work.
Thank you, Joshua, for that comment.
And Josh, I would comment on that. I appreciate you bringing that to our attention and voicing that. The 5, in my opinion, it looks like the 5-0 thing is not, we just don't have the consensus on it for that. But I do, thinking about it after Mr. Lemieux spoke, I do think we owe it to the advisory committee and the different people involved to be able to comment on this one amendment.
Okay. My comments would be the consensus of the AVAC board, and that's who I vote for. Specifically, this area was brought up, and there was vocal opposition by some directors just regarding this one issue about having to state in public why. So, in my personal beliefs, I don't see a problem with it, but I do see a problem with not having clear direction or understanding by the advisory committee and our different groups about what was going to be voted on today. But it is, I believe, a legitimate motion with a legitimate second, so I will go forward with the vote and let it go the way it goes. So, but I think I'll do a roll call vote on this so that the record's clear how we go. So at this point,
can I make a quick statement?
Sure.
Just based upon, I mean, hearing, feedback of certain board members and the constituents that need to confer, I'm supportive of that. This was not me trying to jam down a process. It was trying to find a compromise that I thought was equitable. So, I'm more than happy to support that and allow council and all parties to review.
And I think what I'd like to do, the motions here second, and we've had discussion. Let's have a vote. I think we'll get some guidance through the vote. And then I think what I'm going to ask for is a motion to approve the resolution if we can get it or not, and that will provide us some guidance. Okay?
Director Pierce, wouldn't that create the opportunity for Director Rossi to have that as a future agenda item on the next meeting?
Any one of us can ask for anything, but then I think, taking on Mr. Bryden's comments, I think as we start thinking about what we're directing our council to do, we should start thinking about what the costs are going to be involved in doing it.
Absolutely.
So, okay, so there is a motion. There is a second. The motion is, Joshua, do you want to tell us what you see the motion as?
So the motion is to approve the language as I recite it. Any board member shall state on the record the precise nature of the basis for their abstention or recusal, and that is the motion, to amend the rules and regulation with just that language.
Okay, thank you. And all,
Can we take that motion
I-
back?
I think at
As
the,
opposed to us
I-
voting no?
yeah,
Does it sound like we're against what it's saying?
I think procedurally, let's just go forward.
Yeah, let's go forward with it.
Okay.
Okay, because I feel like I'm saying no to
What, and,
liking that wording.
and I think we will have time to talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. Seconded. Joshua has read the motion. All in favor of that motion by roll call vote?
Chair Paris,
No.
Vice Chair McLaren,
No,
Director Calandri,
No.
Director Urasic,
Yes, with appreciation of what we've all talked about prior.
and Director Kabar.
No.
Okay, and that does not pass.
Motion fails by a 4, 1 in favor, 4 opposed vote. Now we're on the resolution R2373. Is there a motion to approve R2373?
For clarification, there's no motion that dies, right?
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve resolution R2373? There is no motion. No action will be taken on the amendment rules or regulations for unanimous voting requirement.
Correct.
Would you like something else specified at this time, Craig?
No, I think the record's clear.
That brings us to number 10, establish date for special advisory admin and board meeting in December 2023. I have a recommendation looking at calendars, and I did meet with Craig before the meeting to talk about dates also. I would like to propose that we have our next meeting. Usually we don't have a November meeting for Thanksgiving because of conflicts, and then we have a December meeting, and that's our only meeting. We're going to be talking in closed session regarding some issues that should come up for a vote before late December. So I would propose, if this could work for everybody, that our next meeting be on November 29th. It's a Wednesday at the end of November. I'll tell you why I'm proposing that is our next regular meeting, I would imagine, would be on November 22nd if we have a November meeting, but that's the day before Thanksgiving. I'm going to be gone on training for AVAC the first week of December, which takes out the 6th. I think the next week, the 13th, will be too late for us to be talking about some of the issues we need to have resolved before the end of the year.
I can't do the 29th.
the 29th, though?
Oh, I don't know.
Yes, it is.
Oh,
It is.
so that's a problem.
But that's, like in my head, I was trying to think it's that Wednesday is
Okay.
Aqua.
How many are going to Aqua?
I'm going.
Okay, and you can't be there.
I'm out of state.
You're out.
I actually leave the morning of the 29th or the night of the 28th.
I don't
I can
know
do
if
the
Russ is
28th.
going,
What's
but
that?
I'm
Yes.
assuming he is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Russ
Yes,
is
I'll
going.
Russ and I.
Are going to Aqua? So Aqua is during that time. Okay. I wasn't aware of that initiative. So,
We do the 27th.
I think that's still Aqua, isn't it?
That's-
Or
that's still Aqua.
Actually,
That's
that's
Monday,
the
right?
JPIA. That's
Oh.
before, yeah, so, but I don't think most members go there. Would anybody, can we talk about the 27th?
Is he, you go to JPIA? I do.
You're unavailable.
Okay, well, that answers that, so don't worry about it, because he's already unavailable.
27th, we are available.
27th, you are available.
Yes.
You would have an alternate if necessary.
If necessary, yeah,
Or could you send your alternate to
I could
JPIA?
probably send my alternate.
And Derek's available. Would you be?
I'm not.
Oh, you are not on the 27th.
Yeah.
Or Angelica be available.
I will, this is Angelica. I'll be out of town the 27th.
Okay, so 27th out, 28th out, 29th out, 30th out.
Yeah, and like the sort they.
Is that the whole week off?
Yeah.
Mostly.
To clarify, Aqua is the 28th, 29th, and 30th in November.
First of
December.
December. I cannot do the 1st of December.
Would I have the ability to call in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I can call in.
On the 29th?
Yeah.
Okay. But then that still gives us members that are, when are we talking about?
Or we can do the first. The first is more ideal if we can do it.
Yeah, I can't do the 1st.
Oh.
Neither can you.
Russ should be able to call in on the 29th.
Russ could call in on the 29th? Derek,
What day?
29th, can you call in on the 29th?
I'm available.
On the 29th?
Yeah, I would like to, if we can, instead of a 10 start, I could go to 11.
It can be a special meeting, so we can, if we can negotiate at times. Administrators, can you make it on the 29th?
Yeah, we were caucusing with the legal counsel and this, Josh and I can be there on the 29th, but we are counting heads of how many of you would be present in the room for the 29th. Because I think that matters to Craig.
I just want to make sure we don't have a problem with participation.
Well, if we're zeroing in on the 29th, let's make sure all of our alternates or who of our alternates can be available too if we have a problem.
Adrian, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Are you available on the 29th?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Just in case a travel issue occurs.
Got it.
Of course.
And then, Derek, you're,
I will be there.
okay.
Do 11.
And I can do the 29th at 11. And Kathy,
I'll call in.
you'll call in. So there's 2 of us that will be here, 2 that will call in so far.
Russ will call in.
And Russ, so we'd have 3 calling in. And you're going to
here.
We have an issue of when we have 3 calling in, whether we can do that under the rules.
So, Brandon, would you be okay that, you need to call in, right? You're going to be traveling.
I'll be on stage.
Can Adrian
Would be an elephant.
and Haley? Okay.
I can be there. The 29th.
But who is that? Is that Adrian or an elephant?
It's in Helica.
Okay.
Okay, so that would solve that problem. Or Kathy, the 29th, you're going to be at out.
Yeah.
And you're all nervous.
Barbara,
Potentially,
that would be 2,
yeah,
and we're allowed to have 2-way events.
yes.
So then we're good.
So we should be good.
Yeah.
The only issue, I'll throw this out there, is Brandon's on the ad hoc committee for the administrator, and that's when we're going to be likely taking action on the administrator contract. So I would think Brandon needs to be part of that discussion along with Dennis and along with Matt. Matt, are you available that day? Yes. Okay.
Well, I can call in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're at Aqua too. That's right. Okay. Dennis at Aqua.
So he could call in.
We need to change it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to change it.
Craig has a question for you guys that we were trying to figure out. Sure.
Is there a opening for December 13th, Wednesday? I know
I was
that
going to say it was Friday the 13th.
13th, December 13th.
That's a Wednesday.
I'm available.
It's a Wednesday, it gets us out of the holiday.
So that Wednesday, I actually am mediating a case as the mediator, and it's on my calendar.
What about the 6th?
6 is the same issue as I'm actually in,
Is Matt available?
but Matt is available too. Matt, are you available on the 6th?
Yeah, the 4th.
Okay, and Matt's on the committee, so that would be, I would be fine with that. And Kathy, would you be here to chair the meeting?
Mm-hmm.
And Derek and I can both be here in person.
Derek, and you can be here in person, and Dennis, can you be here in person on the 6th? And then Sammy, you and Russ?
Right, yes. Russ is available in person on the 6th.
Okay.
Russ is online.
Russ, are you online now?
You good with the 6th, Russ?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, I am. Thanks for checking.
There you go.
Okay,
I hate to bring this up. I have a conflict the next day. I've got to be in Washington, D.C. for oral argument.
What about Cameron?
Yeah, I can have Cameron here. The 5th is not available.
Can you call in?
No.
Okay.
I can do
The 5th
I can do the
or
5th.
the 4th.
I
I
can
think
do
it's
the 5th.
Monday or Tuesday in December. The 4th or 5th are not as good as the 6th.
I can do the 5th.
We're both free on the 5th, too.
going for the 5th. Matt, 5th. Brandon, 5th. Eric, 5th.
Going once.
Kathy, 5th.
5th?
Sammy and Russ, 5th.
Yes.
And Halika, the 5th, in case there's any issues.
Either.
And
Adrian.
the 5th.
5th's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
On my 5th,
Listen, Helga, would this be at 11 or at 10?
I think the 5th we can do at 10.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'd be calling a special meeting on December 5th.
Can I just make sure that the engineering team is also available on that date?
Yes, please.
Arden?
Arden,
I can attend on the 5th.
okay.
Okay.
And administrators, the 5th? The 5th going,
We will be here on the
great. 5th going once, going twice. Now we'll have we should do a motion to change the meeting to December 5th. And should we put it as a special meeting?
Special meeting.
Okay. Is there a motion to,
Kathy, you can call in even if you were at CP, right?
Yes.
okay,
So we're good.
so,
Okay.
yeah. Good suggestion, right?
Yeah.
Okay, is there a motion to have our special meeting on December 5th at 10 a.m. at AVAC?
So moved.
Motion made by Brandon. Is there a second? Second by Derek. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to have our special meeting on December 5th at AVAC, say aye.
All right.
All opposed. Motion's carried unanimously.
And
Joshua, can you send that calendar update
I'll send
immediately,
it for
please?
right now. Just to clarify, that would mean that the admin committee will be held on December 1 at 8:30 a.m., which is that Friday, the week before. And the advisory committee will now be held on Wednesday, November 29th at their regularly scheduled time, 10 a.m.
Okay, and can you send all those
I will be
notices
sending
at the
that.
same time? Great. Perfect, thank you.
I have to ask, or
I just want to do a head count. You do have 3 in person
Who's
here
going
on
to be
that
in
day.
person?
Yes, we have,
And Matt.
Okay.
yeah.
And
And I believe Russ said he could be here unless I got confused.
Yeah.
And Dennis?
Yeah, just a comment on the advisory committee. I think the 29th at least won't work for me. So we'll come up with a date for the advisory committee. And possibly 2 before that meeting.
Okay.
I would look to legal counsel on how it works on being scheduled for those meetings.
We have a board meeting scheduled for December 5th. We can back up and do, the admin committee can meet Friday before. That's not a problem. If there's some adjustment that needs to happen now with respect to the advisory committee, let's put it on the record and get a date.
Dennis, or I guess Craig rather, what's the red line date that they have to meet by to fall within rules and regs for the?
I don't believe there is one.
Okay.
Yeah, we could probably, I'll have to check with the committee. We could probably meet sometime in that short week before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Would it be appropriate to direct Mr. Lamro to talk to his committee members and get back to the board chair?
Actually, we'd get back to the administrator.
It would be myself. Yeah.
Okay, so they can coordinate it.
Take out the middleman.
Yeah, if potentially we could meet on the 22nd, I believe it's the Wednesday.
That's the day before Thanksgiving.
But I'll have to see how many members of the committee will be available. If not, we can meet on the 29th and I can call into that and Dan Clifford can run the meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for everybody's flexibility.
And I'll be here, because
It's not easy. And Kathy will be here, which is good because you'll need to chair the meeting.
Was the administration meeting going to be December 1st? The Friday?
That's correct.
Okay.
And anybody, any comments before we go on?
I don't know, but
Russ, we saw your picture. You look very nice today.
yeah, you looked very concerned when you popped up. It was like, you were like,
All right.
oh.
Okay. That's got us through item 10. Now we're on item 11, consideration possible action on transfer application.
Hello, good morning. This is Arden.
Is this Arden? It's the Arden Show. Go ahead. Thank you.
Great. So we have one application for consideration today. This is a one-time transfer of carryover water from Martarina Trust to Gene Wheeler Farms. And this is for 3,226.46 acre feet of water with the intention to use this for agricultural purposes on 3 parcels over the course of several years. And so a little background is that the Martarina Trust has 1,775 acre feet per year of permanent production right, and they currently have 7,487.37 acre feet of carryover water that's available for use in 2023. And their parcels are located in the West Antelope sub-area. And then Wheeler Farms is an Exhibit 4 party. They became one after intervening into the judgment in 2020 and have 1 acre foot of production rights and 1,125 acre feet of carryover water, most of which have been acquired via one-time transfers. And so in this application, they stated that they are intending to use this water for agricultural purposes from 4 wells that are located on 3 parcels. And if you look at the map included in the application packet on page 37 of this meeting packet, you can see a map that kind of shows there's 1 parcel with the APN number starting with 3302. And then there's 2 adjacent parcels that are starting with 3368. And all 3 of these parcels are in the central Antelope sub-area. And so for all of these parcels have previously been used for agricultural purposes. up until this past year. And so for our material injury analysis, we're really looking at what have the historic production been from water from these wells that are listed in the application. And then how are the water levels in the area responding to the historical production? And then how does the proposed production compare to how much has been produced from these wells in the past? So I'll walk y'all through that real quick. So the wells that are on parcel starting with 3302 in this application have been previously operated by Nick and Janet Van Dam. And there was previously an application that transferred 146 acre feet of year, a one-time transfer from...
Arden, I have to stop you real quick. My apologies. You said the parcel operated with the beginning of 3302.
Mm-hmm.
The map on page 37, it shows that parcel on Avenue J.
There's a correction, I thought.
Oh, there was? Did I miss that?
I saw read by the administrator. I think it was on there.
Arden, can you give me the cross streets on that parcel if you have it?
Yeah, Arden, we made a correction to the APN that they had incorrectly reported the wrong one, but on the first page, there was a red line with the correct APN.
Oh, okay. I apologize for that.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
I don't know the correct APN off my hand. I can pull it up in the application.
All right, go ahead, Arden.
Okay. So my apologies for that. So this parcel has previously been the wells on this parcel have been previously operated by Nick and Janet Van Dam with annual production ranging from no production to 690 acre feet in each year. And Gene Wheeler Farms has agreed to keep the production less than or equal to the historical production. And the nearby water levels near this parcel do appear to be stable and have not changed according to higher or lower rates of production from this well historically. And then the other two parcels that are adjacent, and they start with 3368. And Gene Wheeler Farms is proposing to produce 200 acre feet per year from each well. So the first parcel, which is 3368-001-009, was previously used by the Kyle Revocable Living Trust, with production ranging from 67 to 448 acre feet per year. So the proposed 200 acre feet per year is within the range of historical production from this parcel. And then the adjacent parcel, 3368-001-026, was previously operated by R&M Ranch, and the production ranged from 280 to 495 acre feet per year from the well on this parcel. And the proposed production by Wheeler Farms of 200 acre feet per year is lower than the historical production. And so in figure 2, we looked at the water levels from monitoring wells near these parcels, and they show either relatively steady water levels over the years or slightly increasing water levels in recent years, which suggests that the historical production has not caused lowering of groundwater levels in the area. And so considering that Wheeler Farms intends to use this water in a manner that is consistent to or less than historical production from these parcels, and this is not new production, this is just changing the location of existing production. Todd Groundwater finds the potential for material injury to be negligible. And this transfer application was also recommended by the advisory committee. Are there any questions?
I have some. Arden, I always worry about moving water from the west end of the valley to the central area of the valley. And I just want to make sure through your guys' process, you're taking into an account not only potential groundwater contaminants that are being tracked, but also drawdown levels and areas of subsidence in your analysis.
Yes. So in this analysis, because the production is not increasing at any of the wells, and there has not been historical drawdown from the past production at these wells at rates that are higher than or equal to the proposed production, we do not anticipate that this will lead to drawdown in the surrounding wells, which would also not cause subsidence because water levels would not be going below historical lows.
And you did say that you guys are also cognizant of some of the different areas of contamination and always take that into consideration.
Yes. And since this is just moving production from the same wells and not the physical water, we do not anticipate any contamination concerns related to this. Additionally, because this is agricultural land that will continue to be used as agricultural land and the water use isn't changing, then that should also not have an effect on groundwater quality.
All right, very good. I'm good.
Thanks. You're welcome.
Go ahead, Derek.
So I know, Arden, this is Derek. I know you stated that it is a physical water moving, but let me just ask this question. You know, there is a production right. There's a finite amount that was decided on that production right that then you're working on your model to determine that number. And when we review it again in years, it's a net number and you're moving that net number from one region to the other, as Brandon asked. So I guess I have a bit of a hesitation to say it isn't moving water because at the end of the day, there's a finite amount of water being pumped in this valley and in this basin. So it is a net move. Because I'm assuming, you know, that historical pumping was either replacement water or they were buying it from someone else that was within the central area. Is that correct?
So for the historical pumping, I do know that the property owned by R&M Ranch, and I believe it was a couple months ago, the production right was purchased by RTS Orchards, which are, off the top of my head, I don't remember exactly which sub area they are.
Pistachio farmers.
Mm-hmm. So the production right associated with at least the parcel 3368001026, they are no longer using that production right at that property.
And Director Rosick, I just want to make sure that you understand. I have firsthand knowledge on what's occurring within that region. I don't have a problem with the transfer occurring because it's not an increase of farming acreage that's occurring in that area. And I do not believe there's going to be a harm with the operational knowledge that I have out there. What I'm concerned about is continuing to vet our process through the negative harm to the basin to make sure we're fully accounting for some of these big moves that are occurring from one side of the valley to the other. I think of some of the nitrogen plumes that we're both very familiar with and being aware of what we're doing with how we're managing the pumping in some of these different areas. So my purpose for it is vetting it. And I do agree with you that in this situation, as stated before, I do view this as a net move of water from one end of the valley to the other. But because there is no increase in acreage, I just don't see an increase of pumping or any harm that could come to the basin. But it's a good discussion point to have.
Okay, good discussion. Any other questions of Arden at this time? Any public questions of Arden at this time?
I did a question for Arden, but I just wanted
Will you come on up, Mrs. Kyle, so the public can hear you?
Julie Kyle. I just wanted to clarify the two parcels that had previously been owned by R&M Ranch and then by Kyle were purchased both from RTS. This will actually be less pumping out in our area because they're actually just going to grow 80 acres, where in the past we were fully alfalfa. So it's quite a bit different. Out of those two wells, we would have probably pumped at least 850 acre feet, and he'll be at more like 200 to 400. So it's a substantial reduction in the amount of acres that are going to be watered out there.
Great. Thank you for the comment.
And staff, just Arden, one more time, you said G. Mueller Farms did agree to not exceed 600 acre feet?
Yes, they did. They agreed to keep the production less than or equal to historical production volumes.
Perfect.
Okay, great. Any other discussion? Hearing no other discussion, is there a motion to approve Resolution R2376?
I move to approve R2376.
Motion made by Brandon. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kathy. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve Resolution R2376, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion's carried unanimous. Now we're on the administrator's report. Jim?
Good question. Do we have a mechanism?
Sammy, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Do we have a mechanism to track commitments?
I didn't hear what you
So the question was, do we have a mechanism to track the commitments made? I would imagine in this case that they would not pump more than historical usage. Arden, can you answer that question for us?
Yes. In the annual, so I would say our best mechanism right now is in the annual report. We keep a table of the transfers and their notes, and in the notes section, typically for commitments and requirements made by the board to applicants, we make a note of those items. Though, based off of our conversation, and I may follow up with y'all directors, Calandra and Urosic, about a way that we can keep track in the annual report of the changes between sub-areas extraction, because I think that y'all are bringing up some very important points about wanting to make sure that the sub-areas that the water transferred is, substantially or is not substantially changing from sub-area to sub-area from where the original water rights have been. And if there are big changes, that we kind of track those as a whole over the course of each year. So
I'd love to talk to you about it. You can call me anytime.
Fantastic. I think it would be great.
I'm looking at how we do the summary of new production and qualified pumpers. Maybe there would be like a map or something kind of showing something so we have something other visually that we could look at when we're reviewing these applications.
That's an excellent idea, Director McLaren. We keep track of the new production rights by, we keep track of them in our table by sub-area, and in each annual report, we do have a map that sort of qualitatively shows the different production throughout the basin with a corresponding circle the size of the reported production. But I think keeping track of transfers and new points of extraction would be a great addition to, and especially visualizing it, I think is a really great idea.
I like Director McLaren's idea on that because we are tasked with managing the health of the overall basin, not specific sub areas. And I think that would help us accomplish that.
And after my lengthy questioning at the trial, they're expecting us to have visually looked at that or have gone back and reread the annual report every time we're doing something. So I think that something like that visually will be helpful.
Joshua, can you put that on as an agenda item for our next meeting with discussion, I would imagine, with Arden to maybe be prepared to present something? Arden?
Yeah, I would input that on, but I would think I would need to clarify, is this something that we're now asking the applicants to pay for as part of the application?
I think that would be part of the discussion. I think it's not the appropriate time right now to discuss it. I think it should be an agenda item, and I should think there should be recommendations from the Watermaster engineer of what they would recommend to us. I think Arden has our concerns about it. Arden, did you hear all that discussion, and are you good with that?
Yes, that sounds fantastic. And we're going to brainstorm some possible ways to best communicate that information to y'all on a regular basis.
Arden, this isn't a directive, this is an idea. I think it would be valuable information, to put it simply put, is per sub area, where did we start out with the amount of water per sub area at the beginning, and where we're at right now per sub area for an analysis. And we can do that off how many acre feet per sub area and where we're at right now is a possible way to go about that if it's doable.
And there'd be two categories of that, right? You'd have who owns the production rights and different where it has moved around.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would want to be tracking where we're putting the carryover from different areas.
That's correct.
Okay.
Because I think it is ultimately our responsibility, not just all on them.
Correct.
Okay, great. That'll be a good discussion moving forward. Administrator, we're still on you guys.
Thank you, Chair Paris. I have 3 items to cover under our administrator's report for this month. First of all, you actually see me here today. That wasn't the plan that we laid out with the board for cost savings. I'm traveling on Hallmark's dime today because we have matters related to our contract to discuss in closed session. So this is a business cost for Hallmark. So wanted folks to be clear that I wasn't changing the board's directive on that.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that comment.
The other things on the out of scope tasks, just to report, Hallmark did accept the board's proposal from the last outcome of the last board meeting, where they offered us to split the difference between what was developed, and so we're completing the rest of this year with half the fee. So I hope that goes somewhere to resolving some of the concerns that have developed over the year, and demonstrates at least our attempt to show some goodwill to resolving that.
Thank you very much.
Related to out-of-scope tasks, next board meeting, you will see an out-of-scope task. Josh spent time at the same trial that Kathy was at. We didn't have that budget as a task item, so you will see an amendment to cover those costs. Those were outside anything we presented to you, so he enjoyed his time in San Jose. So we'll have an accounting of that for your approval next meeting.
Jim, did you guys have any discussion with legal on the ability to recoup that cost?
We figured that was to be done in perhaps closed session.
Okay.
Or other venue.
Yeah, I'm not confident we're going to recoup witnesses' costs, especially in one case that, well, I'll explain it in closed session.
No problem. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on the administrator's report?
One last thing that Josh reminded me of, Todd Groundwater also appeared in that case, and they would also have costs associated with that.
Understood. Thank you.
And that concludes my report.
Very good. And then general counsel's report?
Yeah, just a couple of things that we can say in public session. We had the PRA request from Public Records Act request from Beryl Springs, which was extensive, and I just wanted to indicate that we had tremendous cooperation from staff, from board members, from everyone to produce all the responsive documents to that PRA request. That was absolutely critical for the trial we had last week to go smoothly, and it did. A couple of just public updates that are matters of public record. The Zermalza case has gone from trial, discovery trial, expert witnesses, witnesses to the appellate process that we're in now. And just the board is aware, we have a motion on file to be heard November 17th to recover in part fees, interests, and costs. Beryl Springs matter, just to let you know, it was completed last week. We do not have a decision by the court. The court entertains and wants further briefing, which will be completed by November 6th, and I expect an opinion shortly after that. The rest will be in closed session. And a matter of public information, we were involved in the dispute between Craig Van Dam and Gary Van Dam as a kind of a third-party observer. That matter has now been taken off calendar and is no longer pending. So there should be no further cost to the Watermaster with respect to that specific dispute. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Craig. Board members, future requests for agenda items.
Did you want to?
You have the Watermaster engineer's report.
Oh, hang on. It's here somewhere. Thank you for helping.
Hello.
Oh, Arden, I missed your report. I am so sorry.
Oh, no worries at all. Can I share my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay, fantastic. Right, whoops, I am sharing the wrong screen. I apologize for that. 1 second. I'm always not the best at this. Okay. So, am I sharing the correct screen?
You have to swap.
Okay. How is this? Okay, fantastic. So our Watermaster engineer report, I'd like to start by, whoops, we can see 1 second. I am going to, one more time, try to share the right. Okay. Now is this the right screen? Okay, fantastic. So this is our new production and qualified small pumpers summary. So you can see there is 1 acre-foot per year that was approved last month. So our current new production total is 1,049.92 acre-feet per year. And there has been no small pumper additions since December 2022. And I want to put in just a quick note that we have completed our metering review for the past year. We receive metering reports from all parties that show monthly readings, and they're submitted quarterly. So I'd like to give a huge thank you to everybody who has submitted their third quarter metering reports, and it's never too late to get those in. And so we looked at the reports that were submitted in the beginning of 2022 for January, early January through the end, or early January in 2023. And we did a check against the annual production reports that were submitted for the compliant parties, just to make sure that the metering matches, that folks are accurately reporting. And great job, everyone, to those who submitted their metering reports and their production reports. And so there still are issues with compliance, particularly with metering. But we are tracking compliance for both meter installation and also regular reporting. And we've been thinking about ways to optimize our methodology to save time and budget, and brainstorming ways to potentially increase compliance. And I'd like to pass it to Maureen for the model update.
Hi, yeah.
Todd Groundwater has been hard at work at the model. Right now, we're focusing on updating the recharge of the model. Previous models had recharge combined, and we're breaking it out, looking at natural recharge, return flows, and making sure those totals match what was simulated in past. We're bringing return flows up to the present. We're looking at the spatial distribution of crops over time, taking into account estimates for irrigation as well as irrigation efficiency to really dial into that return flow recharge for the model. In addition, we've expanded the grid previously, and now we're going back to those new areas and making sure we're simulating all the pumping that is occurring on the areas that weren't simulated in the past, so we can accurately simulate all of production across the valley. And we're still on track to have this part done by the end of the year, work on getting a calibrated model and adjusting anything else we need to really make it a tool for material injury analysis or other valuable assessments for the basin leading up to the future analysis that we'll do.
Sure how frequently meters need to be calibrated, but I can check the rules and regulations and metering guidelines and let you know.
I'm emailing somebody right now, and hopefully we'll have an answer in the next couple of minutes.
And I'm bringing this up purposely for the topic of this discussion because we are supposed to, part of the compliancy in this thing, and I've asked Mrs. Kyle to come up to the speaker.
You did not, I did.
Oh, I waited to. I asked her to come up because I want to make sure that in part of our compliance discussions that we're having, I've got concerns about some of the meters around town. Mrs. Kyle, you have the floor.
The meters are to be tested annually or calibrated every 3 years.
Okay. And I would like, since you're talking about that, and that's been brought to the floor as part of our discussion on everybody doing what they're supposed to, we need to hear from you guys on how we're going to be verifying that with everyone.
Absolutely. Is this an item that we should bring to a future board meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay, excellent.
You're asking that to be a future agenda item.
I am asking for that to be a future agenda item.
Capturing that. And I had a question that might go along with Brandon's question, or may not. We talk about compliance. Do we have a record of who's not in compliance with metering, who's not in compliance with reporting? And I know this is a broad subject, but what action can we take regarding those people or companies that are not in compliance? And that may be a question directly to Craig, but we're always talking about compliance. I don't think we publicly talk about what we're doing to get people in compliance.
Yeah, and just note that we have the power to enjoin production until we have wells metered, production reports produced. The tension is if there's non-responsive parties out there, we kind of weigh it in terms of how much back assessments are owed. They get the immediate attention. But it would be worthwhile thinking of talking about a process to done them with letters, have staff call them, whatever we need to get those reports. They're absolutely required under the judgment. We're absolutely empowered to get them if we want to, and we have power to enjoin their production until they do produce them.
And then a question, I don't know if we do this at this point, but if companies are not in compliance with reporting on their production or have not metered, are we able to prohibit them from doing any type of transfer
Absolutely.
or sales of carryover or anything like that?
We've been very clear, and I believe it's in the rules and regs, if not in the judgment, that until they are completely up to date in terms of their responsiveness, production reports and whatever is required by the Watermaster, we're not going to be working on their behalf to analyze transfer applications or anything else.
So we're enforcing that at this point.
just so the board is aware, staff does check those type of requirements, especially when they owe money to the Watermaster. And just in the past few months with the supplemental assessment, I have had to reject a handful of applications notifying them that they are not going to be reviewed until their invoices are paid.
Okay, great. So applications regarding transfer or
Any type
sales
of
or
application.
any type of, okay, great.
I
Good.
think,
I think the public need to hear that.
yeah, because you just brought it up and I think that is something that you should share with us, like maybe just like a report of what calls you have gotten and different things, so people are aware that there are actually people that are trying to do this and they are being turned down. Because I know one of the things, compliance is important to me, and I always feel because everybody, all the farmers and everyone that are doing the right thing, and we're all working it out and trying to struggle and everything. It's really unfair for those that are not putting in. So I don't know if the rest of you feel that compliance is definitely something we should do.
So I do like peer pressure. I just make sure that we're not invading people's privacy. So for that, if it, just personal privacy. So peer pressure is great. I got a question. I mean, I think we're taking the step of not approving, but I would get more aggressive. That what rights under this do we have them, but stopping them from pumping to mitigate on that, right? If they're a bad actor, they're a bad actor, and I think we need to deal with them. And so that's my first comment. And my second comment is that, how are we making sure that we aren't having bad actors, that people aren't manipulating meters, that aren't, dealing with that in a manner that shows a number that they want to show versus what they're actually pumping. And, I know we have the, that they're getting checked, but, there's a number of ways that we know that you can play the game, and I want to make sure we're preventing that if we're going to find sustainability.
How can the Watermaster engineer team support you for the next board meeting? What would you like us to prepare for you to have in front of you?
Maureen, I think I'll work with you offline.
Okay.
And I
Sounds
think
good.
minimally, if we could have a report of who and what providers, production, people who have production rights are not in compliance with metering, and which ones are not in compliance with reporting pumping. And if we can have a list of those, I think that would start this process, if that's not a very time-consuming request. And I don't know.
I would think.
And I would like to just
at our disposal anyway. That should be part of the daily operation.
I would think. Is that something that could be easily provided, Arden?
Yes, so we have been working the past month to make sure that our list of parties and their status as far as metering and their status as far as metering reporting are updated and in an organized way. And I think that's the first step for really starting to track this. And there are quite a few parties that either are not yet metered or are not reporting. And so I think this is a very important item.
So 2024 is a year of compliance. Hopefully we can get them compliant.
There you go.
I love that.
I just add to that, and just add on as well as how we are enforcing to make sure that there aren't bad actors out there with the metering system.
And Derek, one thought may be is, we have to get the calibration done on the meters. Maybe we need to make that part of our annual reporting to submit documentation on that.
Thank you.
That's it. Continue on, Maureen. Sorry for the disruption.
Well, that was the end of the model update. We're going to move ahead with the calibration, but that's making sure that the model is simulating the water levels accurately. Calibration is important in meters and models to make sure we're all talking about the same numbers. I think that was the end of my model update. Again, you can contact, this is our email addresses. So if you have any questions about the model or the metering or anything else we do, feel free to email anytime.
Thank you.
And the only other thing I'd request at this point, in the AVAC board meeting, it came up about, we approved the funding for the USGS report, substantial funding. And the question came up is, what are we getting out of it? I know you have talked about it before, but in your report, next board meeting, if you could just include how you're using the USGS report for the modeling. I know you told us about that before, and I think you told us how important it is that we have that. But I think all various boards are providing funding for it, and I think that would be a good recap. And I will ask my board to listen in at the next meeting for that.
Because we were asked also by AV State Water Contractors for that.
Because the AV State water contractors, I think, are paying half. Is that right, Matt? Yeah, so that came up at a lot of our board meetings. So, and I know in the past that you have told us how instrumental that report is for what you're doing. It's just always good for the boards to know what they're paying their money for.
We'll totally have that for the next meeting. Just overall, having a consistent long record for wells in the basin for water levels helps in the annual report, the material injury and the model. You saw Arden's hydrographs for material injury. It's critical to have wells that are monitored to the top-notch protocol that the USGS does. And we'll have more details at the next meeting to really tell you how much we need that data.
And I think in the past we've talked about our Watermaster engineer, you interacting with USGS on requesting other wells or other things in that report. So if you could just add that into your report, that'd be great. And for the public to know, there is the discussion, isn't the USGS model really the responsibility of the Watermaster Board? Not now AVAC, not now Alabama State Contractors, now other agencies. And I think members of this Watermaster Board who are in those agencies have been very supportive of the other agencies bearing a lot of the costs for that because of the benefits they get. So just want to throw that out as a commercial. We are working hard to get funding from other sources. Okay. Anything else on the engineer's report?
That's all we've got.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And I've already done the general counsel's report. We're now on 15 board members' requests for future agenda items. We've had a few, Eric, I know you would like to.
Yeah, I think like the direct council and agendize the abstention and recusal conversation we had.
So my comment to that would be, because obviously if we direct council to do that, it's going to cost more money. I think we saw what the consensus was, but maybe just have a quick discussion of is that something the rest of the board thinks is necessary? And specifically, I think Derek's request is to put on the agenda and have council come back to us regarding whether somebody who's abstaining or recusing themselves should state in public the reasons they're doing that. My board, the consensus was that's not something they would want to see. I don't know what other people feel. And if there's going to be others who feel the same way, then I don't know if it's prudent to spend council's our money to do that. I don't know.
Put it on as an action item rather than a council review.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, I would really like to understand that further and have an open discussion in public about it.
Okay. Other board members? Okay.
Just so I understand that clearly, are you asking for an action item or for an update from general counsel?
I'm hearing some opposition to an action item in the economic. If there's a concern about it, I'm surprised by that, but would be open to talking about it. So I think the action item would be a discussion within the board about directing whether we direct council to do that.
So no additional legal work would be required for that. It's strictly an item on the agenda to allow the board to decide if you want to take that next step more formally.
And a question to Craig, I think you understand what their request is. Would additional legal work be necessary to come back as an action item for that specific item?
I'll be prepared at the meeting to respond to the legal standard for abstention or recuse.
Okay.
And I would say that would be normal because it was an agendized item that council should be prepared to, look for direction from the board.
Okay.
And I have
one more. So during our last meeting in the High Desert approval of the water bank there was a conversation, and I know I tend to delete it, about the 10% holdback and evapotranspiration. I did have a follow-up email based upon my request from Todd Groundwater. They followed up with me. I'd like to put that on the agenda for them to present. I think it's very good for the board to see as well as the public to see of what their findings are.
And and do you understand what that agenda item is, Joshua?
Okay. Work with Ivan on that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good, Craig. It's some comments have been made to me that we're spending some legal fees on speculators within the basin trying to understand the adjudication better, and possible realtors, speculative water purchasers. I'd like to get an update on if there is in fact any legal fees being spent by something other than is directed by the board or its members. For example, a real estate agent calling, trying to understand a potential purchase of a property. And also, if that is occurring, possible steps to mitigate that cost or put the burden of that cost on them. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I'm not aware of that happening, but
if we could just double check on that and report back, that'd be great. And I would like an update from that on the administrative side as well. As I know, Jim, I believe you and I had a discussion on that. And if that is occurring, I don't think the stakeholders need to be bearing the burden of the cost of somebody trying to do a real estate deal or water acquisition. We need to see if there's a mechanism for them to pay for that. That's it.
Thank you, Brandon. Any other agenda items?
If we could have a discussion about making a verbal record of our meetings.
Mean a recording of our meetings?
Yes.
On Zoom? Oh, that's the question.
In other words, so that we have something to make it easier to look back on, because we're just taking notes right now. But another way that we could
I would look to legal counsel. That's something I could do starting today if you want, but I don't know if that needs to be an item to vote on.
Well, I have a question, Matt. Do you guys have the ability to video record here?
We have video, but I think Kathy's asking, I correct me, Kathy, if I'm wrong, you're asking for audio, not
video, audio. Do you guys have that ability within here?
And like I said, as a discussion, I'm just saying that it would have been helpful to have something to look back or hold back on if we're required to make any kind of answers.
You're talking for the legal case. If that's an option, I'd sure love to hear what our options are on that.
Yes.
Please do.
Yeah, I'll be glad to weigh in on that.
Okay, great.
We can put that on the agenda for next month. I've weighed through this issue with boards from my previous positions and understand it's a significant policy decision by the board.
Well, and that's why I definitely wanted it. Derek already looks like he might. But that's why I definitely wanted it to put on just for discussion. Okay?
Great. Any other agenda items? Okay, seeing none. We'll go to item 16, closed session. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Motion by Brandon, second by Derek. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion to go into closed session, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion's carried unanimously. We will go into closed session in, why don't we give you a 7-minute break? We'll go in at 11:50 a.m.
Perfect.
Thank you, everybody.